I married a monster, he transforms every full moon. A full werewolf romance audiobook by Shadow Howl's Tale, The Wedding Night. I'm telling you this story because you need to understand. Love isn't always what the fairy tales promise. Sometimes it's messier, darker, more terrifying than anything you could imagine. But sometimes, just sometimes, it's worth fighting for anyway. My name is Nikki Angela, and I married a monster. Not metaphorically, not in the he turned out to be a jerk sense that my friends joked about at my bachelorette party. I mean, I literally married a man who transforms into a beast every full moon, a creature with fangs and claws and yellow eyes that don't recognize me as anything but prey. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start with the wedding night. Our wedding night. The hotel suite was perfect. Rose petals scattered across cream-colored sheets, champagne chilling in a silver bucket, moonlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows. I stood by those windows in my silk nightgown, the expensive one I'd saved for months to buy, watching the moon rise over the city. It was full, impossibly bright, turning everything silver white. "It's beautiful," I whispered when Frederick came up behind me, his hands settling on my shoulders. He didn't answer right away. His fingers trembled against my skin, and when I turned to look at him, his face had gone pale. "Nikki." His voice sounded strangled. "There's something I need to tell you." I laughed, still giddy from the wedding, from the dancing, from becoming Mrs. Nikki Kane just hours ago. "What, you have a secret family? Another wife? A gambling debt?" "Worse." He stepped back, putting distance between us, and that's when I saw his hands. The way his fingers were curling, joints cracking, nails darkening. "I should have told you before. I tried so many times, but I couldn't find the words, and I thought maybe I could control it, thought maybe love would be enough to—" "Frederick, you're scaring me." I reached for him, but he jerked away. "When the moon is full," he said, the words coming fast now, desperate. "I can't control what I become." I stared at him. This was a joke, had to be. Some weird wedding night prank that I didn't understand. But his eyes... God, his eyes were changing color, darkening from their normal, warm brown to something amber, something wild. "What are you talking about?" "I'm a werewolf, Nikki." He was already moving toward the bedroom door, toward the heavy deadbolt I'd noticed earlier and thought was just paranoid city security. "I have maybe 5 minutes before the change completes. You have to lock me in the basement. Tonight." The word werewolf hung in the air between us like something physical. I couldn't process it, couldn't make it make sense. Werewolves weren't real. They were movies and Halloween costumes and mythology, not something that happened to successful business executives who proposed with Tiffany rings and cried during their wedding vows. "This isn't funny." My voice came out thin, childlike. "I know." He was at the door now, hands on the frame, whole body shaking. "I know, and I'm so sorry, but you need to listen to me. In the basement, there's a reinforced room, steel door, concrete walls. The hotel staff think I'm crazy, but I paid them enough not to ask questions. You have to lock me in there. You have to." "Frederick," his back arched. I heard bones cracking, actually heard them, like branches breaking in a storm. He made a sound I'll never forget, something between a scream and a growl, pure agony given voice. I watched in horror as my husband of 6 hours, began to change. His spine curved, reshaping itself. His clothes tore as his body expanded, muscles rippling and reforming beneath his skin. His face elongated, jaw pushing forward, teeth sharpening into fangs. Dark hair sprouted across his shoulders, his arms everywhere. His eyes, those eyes that had looked at me with such love at the altar, turned completely yellow, pupils narrowing to slits. I couldn't move, couldn't scream. Couldn't do anything but watch as the man I'd married disappeared into something else entirely. The creature that stood before me was massive, easily 7 feet tall, covered in coarse, dark fur. It breathed heavily, each exhale sounding like a growl. Those yellow eyes fixed on me, and I saw no recognition there. No love, no humanity. Only hunger. "Frederick?" I whispered. It took a step toward me. That broke the paralysis. I ran, grabbed the keys he'd dropped, sprinted down the hallway, heard the beast behind me snarling, snapping. The basement door was exactly where he'd said, and thank God the keycard worked on the first try. I practically fell down the stairs, found the reinforced room, exactly as he'd described, steel door already open like he'd prepared it earlier, and turned just as the creature reached the bottom of the stairs. For a moment we locked eyes. Me standing in the doorway, it crouched at the stairs, both of us breathing hard. "Frederick," I said again, trying to reach whatever might be left of him inside that thing. "Please, it's me, it's Nikki." The beast's lips pulled back, revealing rows of sharp teeth. Then it lunged. I slammed the door, threw the deadbolts, turned the locks with shaking hands while something huge and furious threw itself against the other side. The metal held, barely. Each impact sent shudders through the frame. I sank to the floor outside that door, my wedding nightgown torn, my hands bleeding from where I'd scraped them on the rough walls, and listened to my husband howl. It was the worst sound I'd ever heard. Pain and rage and something that might have been grief, all mixed together into something barely animal, barely human. I sat there all night, listening, crying, trying to understand how my perfect wedding day had ended with me on a basement floor, guarding a door that held back a monster. When dawn finally came, the sounds stopped. The howling faded. Everything went quiet. I waited another hour before I opened the door. Frederick lay on the concrete floor, naked, covered in sweat and what might have been blood. Human again. Completely human. His eyes opened when I knelt beside him, and they were brown, normal brown, filled with such sadness that I started crying all over again. "You stayed," he whispered. I didn't know what to say to that. Didn't know if staying made me brave or stupid or both. "Tell me everything," I finally said. And he did. Chapter 1. The morning after. The story. Frederick told me that morning, wrapped in hotel robes with dawn light bleeding through the basement windows. Should have sent me running. Would have sent any sane person running. His family had been cursed for 7 generations. It started with his great-great-great-grandfather, a man named Elias Kane, who'd made a deal with something he shouldn't have. The details were murky. Frederick himself didn't know the full story, but the result was clear. Every male in the Kane bloodline became a werewolf on their 25th birthday. "It's not like in the movies," he said, his voice hoarse from the night's transformation. "I don't just grow a little hairier. I lose myself completely. The wolf takes over. I have no memories of what happens during the change. No control whatsoever." I sat across from him on that cold concrete floor, trying to reconcile this information with reality. "How long have you been dealing with this?" 5 years. He looked at his hands like he didn't recognize them. "Since my 25th birthday. I woke up in the woods, covered in blood, animal blood, thank God, never human, with no memory of how I got there." "And you never thought to mention this before we got married?" The question came out sharper than I intended, but I was entitled to some anger. He'd put a ring on my finger, made vows in front of everyone I loved, without telling me the most important thing about himself. "I tried." His voice broke. "God, Nikki, I tried so many times. But how do you say that? How do you tell someone you love that you're a literal monster? Every time I got close, I'd see your face, imagine your reaction, and I'd lose my nerve. So you thought wedding night was better? I thought marriage would give you a reason to stay. He finally met my eyes. I thought if you'd already committed, if we'd already made vows, you might be willing to fight through this with me instead of just walking away. The manipulation of it stung, but beneath my anger I could see his desperation, his loneliness, 5 years of dealing with this alone. 5 years of full moons and transformations and waking up not knowing what the beast had done. Your family? I asked. Do they know? My father died when I was 12. Heart attack, officially. He swallowed hard. But I think the curse killed him. I found journals. The transformations get worse as you age, more frequent, harder to control. I think he eventually couldn't handle it anymore. A chill ran down my spine. How much time do we have? I don't know. Could be decades. Could be years. He reached for my hand, hesitant, like he expected me to pull away. I almost did. I'm searching for a way to break it. There has to be something, some cure, some counterspell. I've been researching since it started. I have contacts in the supernatural community. The supernatural community. I laughed, the sound a little hysterical. 24 hours ago, I didn't believe in werewolves. Now there's a community? Witches, vampires, shifters of various kinds. They mostly keep to themselves, stay hidden, but they exist, and some of them might know how to help. I looked at the man I'd married, really looked at him. The exhaustion in his eyes, the scars on his arms I'd never asked about, the way he always scheduled business trips around the full moon. All the little signs I'd missed because I'd been too blinded by romance to see them. I should leave, I said quietly. His face crumpled. Nikki, I should leave, I repeated. This is insane. You're cursed, you're dangerous, and you lied to me about the biggest thing possible. Every rational part of me is screaming to grab my things and get out. But? He seized on the word like a lifeline. I closed my eyes. But I stood in front of everyone I love and promised to stay through sickness and health. And this? I gestured at the reinforced room, the scratches on the inside of the steel door that I'd tried not to think about. This is definitely the sickness part. You don't have to stay out of obligation. His voice was thick. I'll arrange an annulment. You can tell everyone it was my fault that I'm unstable. Your reputation will be fine. You can just... Shut up. I opened my eyes. I'm not staying out of obligation. I'm staying because last night I saw something horrible, but this morning I'm still looking at you and I still see the man who brought me coffee in bed every Sunday for 3 months. The man who laughed at my terrible jokes and cried at our wedding. The monster is part of you, but it's not all of you. Are you sure? He was crying now, silent tears tracking down his face. Because once you commit to this, it's not going to get easier. Every full moon for the rest of our lives, you'll have to lock me in that room. You'll have to live with the knowledge that I could kill you if I ever get loose. You'll have to give up normal, Nikki. All of it. I thought about my apartment, my job as a financial analyst, my book club and yoga classes and Sunday brunches with friends, all the ordinary, safe, predictable pieces of the life I'd built. Then I thought about the way Frederick had looked at me on our wedding day. The way he'd whispered that I was his miracle, his second chance at happiness. Show me everything, I said finally. The journals, the research, your supernatural contacts. If we're doing this, if I'm really staying, then I need to know everything. No more secrets. Relief flooded his face. No more secrets, I promise. We went back upstairs as the hotel began to wake around us. Our honeymoon suite looked almost normal in the daylight, except for the scattered rose petals, the untouched champagne, and the fact that neither of us had slept. Frederick pulled out a leather satchel from the closet. Inside, journals dating back decades, newspaper clippings, printouts from obscure websites, and what looked like pages torn from ancient texts. "This is everything I've collected," he said, spreading it across the bed. "Family records, accounts from other werewolves, theories about curse breaking. I've been documenting everything. The timing of transformations, how long they last, any variations in behavior." I picked up one of the journals, his father's, written in cramped handwriting. The first entry was dated 30 years ago. "The curse took me on my 25th birthday, just as it took my father before me. I thought I was prepared. I was wrong. Nothing can prepare you for losing yourself to the beast." My hands trembled as I flipped through pages of documentation. Full moons marked in red, descriptions of transformations, desperate theories about breaking the curse, each one crossed out, failed. The last entry was dated 3 days before his father's death. "I can feel it getting stronger. The wolf wants out even when the moon is dark. If I can't find a way to end this soon, I'm afraid of what I might become, what I might do to the people I love. God forgive me." "Your mother?" I asked. "Left when I was 5. She couldn't handle it. I don't remember her very well, but my father's journals mention her sometimes. She tried, but the fear was too much. She'd look at him differently after transformations. Eventually, she just stopped looking at him at all." I heard the real question beneath his words. "Will you eventually stop looking at me too?" "I'm not your mother," I said firmly. "And this isn't the same situation. I'm going into this with my eyes open, terrified but open." He kissed me then, soft and grateful, and for a moment it felt almost normal, almost like we were just newlyweds starting our life together, not two people preparing for war against a supernatural curse. The rest of that day was a crash course in the supernatural world. Frederick made phone calls to contacts with names like Silas and Ravenna. He explained the underground network of supernatural beings living hidden among humans, careful, secretive, bound by rules I didn't understand yet. "There's a witch in the city," he said, "Octavia Blackwood. She's helped me before with containment charms, making sure the room in the basement holds. I'll set up a meeting." "A witch," I rubbed my temples. "Of course there's a witch. She might know something about breaking curses. If anyone does, it's her." We spent our so-called honeymoon in that hotel suite surrounded by research, making plans for the next full moon. Frederick showed me the warning signs before transformation. The mood swings, physical changes, heightened senses. He taught me the procedure for locking him in safely, what to do in case of emergency. "You should have a gun," he said. "Silver bullets. Just in case." "I'm not shooting you. If I get loose during a transformation, you might not have a choice." The casualness with which he said it made my stomach turn. This was his reality. This was our reality now. That night, I called my best friend Sarah, told her everything was wonderful, the honeymoon was perfect, married life was bliss. She believed me because why wouldn't she? I'd always been a terrible liar, but fear makes you creative. After I hung up, I sat on the bathroom floor and cried. Frederick found me there 20 minutes later. Didn't say anything, just sat beside me and held me while I sobbed out all the fear and confusion and anger I'd been holding back. "I'm sorry," he whispered into my hair. "I'm so sorry." "I know," I said. And I did. But sorry didn't change anything. Sorry didn't break curses or make monsters disappear. We went home 3 days later. Our actual home, a beautiful brownstone in a nice neighborhood that suddenly felt less like a dream house and more like a very expensive cage. Frederick had already converted the basement into a secure room, reinforced walls, steel door, soundproofing. Looking at it in our own house, our home, made everything more real. Next full moon is in 27 days, he said, checking his phone calendar. We have time to prepare, to get you ready. But how do you prepare for watching your husband turn into a monster? How do you ready yourself for the possibility that the locks might fail, the door might not hold, that the man you love might kill you? I didn't have answers. Neither did Frederick. All we had was time, 27 days, and the desperate hope that maybe, somehow, we could find a way through this. Together. Chapter 2. Meeting the Witch. Octavia Blackwood's shop sat between a vintage clothing store and an organic cafe in a trendy part of downtown. The sign above the door read Moonstone Apothecary in elegant silver script, and the windows displayed crystals, herbs, and candles arranged in patterns that probably meant something to people who understood these things. I didn't understand any of it. Remember, Frederick said as we stood outside, be respectful. Witches can be particular about manners. You mean she might curse me if I'm rude? Yes, he wasn't joking. Actually, yes, she might. Great. Add that to my growing list of supernatural concerns. The bell chimed as we entered, and I was immediately hit with the scent of sage and something sweeter I couldn't identify. The shop was dimmer than I expected, lit by candles and soft lamps that cast everything in golden light. Frederick Kane. The voice came from the back, rich and amused. I wondered when you'd bring her to see me. The woman who emerged from behind a beaded curtain was not what I expected. She couldn't have been more than 35, with deep brown skin, silver-white locks that fell past her shoulders, and eyes that seemed to shift color in the candlelight. She wore layers of flowing fabric in deep purples and blacks, rings on every finger, and a knowing smile that made me instantly uncomfortable. Octavia, Frederick said with what looked like genuine warmth. This is my wife, Nikki. Oh, I know who she is. Octavia's eyes traveled over me with an intensity that made me feel exposed. The question is, does she know what she's gotten herself into? I'm starting to, I said, trying to match her directness. Her smile widened. Good. Self-awareness is crucial in this world. Come, sit. We have much to discuss. She led us to a back room that felt more like a library than a shop. Shelves lined every wall, crammed with books that looked older than my grandmother. A heavy wooden table dominated the center, covered in more candles, crystals, and what looked suspiciously like bones. Tea? Octavia asked, already pouring from an ornate pot into 3 delicate cups. What's in it? I asked before I could stop myself. She laughed, a sound like wind chimes. Smart girl, nothing harmful, I assure you. Chamomile, lavender, and a touch of moonflower for clarity. You'll need clarity for what's coming. The tea tasted exactly as she described. Floral, calming, with an aftertaste that made my head feel clearer somehow. So, Octavia settled into her chair, studying us over her cup. You want to break the Kane curse. Is it possible? I asked. Possible? Yes. Probable? That's a different question. She set down her tea and folded her hands. The curse on Frederick's bloodline is old, powerful, and very specific. It was cast by someone with considerable skill and even more considerable rage. Do you know who? Frederick leaned forward. Not with certainty, but I have theories. Octavia stood, running her fingers along the spines of books until she found what she wanted. She pulled down a leather-bound tome that left a trail of dust in the air. Curses like this, generational, transformative, they're not cast lightly. They require a blood sacrifice, a full lunar eclipse, and a grudge deep enough to poison multiple lifetimes. She opened the book to a page marked with a black ribbon. The text was handwritten in a language I didn't recognize, but the illustrations were clear enough. A wolf, a full moon, and what looked like a family tree being consumed by flames. "Your ancestor," Octavia said to Frederick. "Elias Cain. What do you know about him?" "Only what's in my family journals. He was wealthy, successful, married with 2 sons. Then on one full moon in 1847, everything changed. Because he broke a promise to a witch named Morgana Ashford." Octavia tapped the page. "I've been researching since you first came to me 5 years ago. Morgana was a powerful practitioner who lived on the outskirts of your ancestor's town. According to records I've found, Elias commissioned her services, a spell to ensure his business success. In exchange, he promised to protect her when the town turned against witches, as they were prone to do in those days." "Let me guess," I said. "He didn't keep his promise." "Worse. When the mob came for Morgana, Elias led them. He wanted her services, but not the association. Wanted the power she could give him, but none of the risk of being seen with her." Octavia's expression darkened. "They burned her at the stake, but before she died, she cursed the bloodline. Every male Cain would become the very monster Elias had pretended to protect the town from." "Jesus," I breathed. "An ironic punishment, really. Elegantly cruel." Octavia closed the book. The curse was meant to destroy the Cain family name, turn them into the beasts they'd made her out to be. "How do we break it?" Frederick's voice was tight. "That's the question I've been working on for years." Octavia returned to her seat. "Most curses can be broken through one of 3 methods. True love's kiss." "We've tried that," I interrupted, remembering our wedding night. "Which clearly didn't work because true love isn't the point. The curse isn't about love, it's about justice. Or rather, vengeance masquerading as justice." She held up 2 fingers. "The second method, killing the curse caster. But Morgana died 200 years ago, so that's not an option." "And the third?" Frederick asked. "Atonement. The family line must somehow atone for Elias's sin, make amends for the betrayal that started all of this." I frowned. "How do you make amends to someone who's been dead for 2 centuries? "That," Octavia said, "is the challenge. But I believe it might be possible. Morgana had a descendant, a daughter who survived the witch trials. If I can trace her bloodline to the present day, if we can find one of Morgana's living descendants and somehow make reparation, that could break the curse," Frederick finished. "It's a theory. Curses like this often have clauses, loopholes built in by the caster. Even in vengeance, most witches leave a door open for redemption. They're not typically interested in eternal punishment. They want acknowledgement, justice, balance restored. So we need to find a witch descended from the woman Frederick's ancestor murdered," I said slowly. "And what, apologize?" "Apologize, make restitution, acknowledge the wrong." Octavia's eyes gleamed. "In magical terms, it's about balancing the scales. The curse exists because there's a debt unpaid. Pay the debt, break the curse." "How do we find this descendant?" Frederick asked. "I've already started looking. The Ashford line scattered after Morgana's death, understandably, given the circumstances. But witches keep records. We track our bloodlines carefully. Give me a few weeks, and I should have something. A few weeks." Another full moon would pass by then, maybe two. In the meantime, Octavia continued, I can help strengthen the containment measures. The transformations are getting worse, yes? Frederick nodded. More violent. I can feel the wolf's consciousness even between full moons now. It's like it's getting stronger, pushing closer to the surface. That's the curse progressing. Each generation it tightens its grip. Your father lasted until his 40s. You might have less time. She said it perfectly, but I saw Frederick flinch. How much less? Hard to say. Years, certainly, but probably not decades. The curse is designed to consume the bloodline, remember? Eventually you won't just transform during full moons. You'll start losing yourself to the wolf permanently. The tea in my stomach turned to acid. What happens if he can't break it in time? Octavia met my eyes with something like sympathy. Then Frederick Kane dies and only the beast remains. Permanently. No more human consciousness, no more control. Just an animal with human intelligence trapped in wolf form, driven by instinct and rage. That's not going to happen, I said firmly, reaching for Frederick's hand. We'll find this descendant. We'll break the curse. I hope you're right. Octavia stood, signaling the end of our meeting. But hope isn't enough in this world. You'll need preparation, protection, and strength. All three of you, Frederick, and the beast. The beast isn't a third party, Frederick said bitterly. It's just the worst part of me. Is it? Octavia tilted her head. Or is it a separate consciousness created by the curse? Fighting for survival the only way it knows how? Have you ever tried to communicate with it? How would I do that? I have no memory of the transformations. There are ways, meditation, ritual, guided visualization. If you could reach the wolf consciousness, understand what it wants, you might be able to find some measure of control. She walked us toward the door. Think about it. A curse this powerful doesn't just suppress your humanity, it creates something new. That creation might be more than just mindless rage. She pressed a small velvet bag into my hand. For you. Protection herbs. Carry them during the full moon. They won't stop the wolf if it gets loose, but they might buy you time to escape. Thank you, I managed. Don't thank me yet. The hard part is still ahead. She looked at Frederick. I'll be in touch when I have news about the Ashford descendant. In the meantime, be careful. And Nicky? She caught my arm as I turned to leave. He's lucky to have you. Not many would stay. But don't let love make you foolish. Have an escape plan. Always. The bell chimed as we left, stepping back into the normal world where people walked by with coffee cups and shopping bags, completely unaware of the supernatural lurking beneath the surface. She's intense, I said once we were safely in the car. She's honest. I appreciate that about her. Frederick gripped the steering wheel. What she said about the wolf consciousness? I've felt that sometimes. Like there's something aware during the transformations. Something that's not quite me, but not entirely separate either. Do you think we could communicate with it? I don't know, yeah. The idea terrifies me. What if I connect with it and discover it really does want to kill you? What if I'm just giving it more power? Or what if you connect with it and find out it's scared too? I countered. What if it's trapped just like you are? He looked at me with something like wonder. How are you so brave about all this? I'm not brave. I'm terrified every second. I touched the velvet bag Octavia had given me. But being terrified and running are two different things. We drove home in silence, both of us lost in our thoughts. The brownstone looked peaceful in the afternoon light, completely normal. You'd never know that beneath it sat a reinforced room designed to cage a monster. Over the next 3 weeks, we fell into a strange new routine. Frederick continued going to work, managing his business as if everything was normal. I took a leave of absence from my job, telling them I needed time to settle into married life. In reality, I spent my days researching curses, reading Frederick's family journals, and trying to understand the supernatural world I'd stumbled into. Nights were different. Frederick started having nightmares, violent, visceral dreams where he woke up covered in sweat, sometimes with his hands shifted partially into claws. The curse was indeed getting stronger, pushing closer to the surface even when the moon was dark. I held him through those nightmares, whispering reassurances I wasn't sure I believed. Sarah called constantly, wanting to do lunch, catch up on married life. I made excuses. My other friends started to notice my absence from our usual hangouts. I told them I was just busy adjusting, spending time with my new husband. It wasn't entirely a lie. I was spending time with Frederick, just not in the ways they imagined. Instead of romantic dinners, we practiced the lockdown procedure. Again and again, timing how fast I could get him secured if the transformation started early. Instead of couples yoga, we met with Octavia to learn protection spells and meditation techniques that might help Frederick connect with the wolf consciousness. Instead of planning our future, we were fighting for one. The full moon approached. 27 days had passed in a blur of preparation and fear. "I've been thinking," Frederick said the night before, as we lay in bed staring at the ceiling. "Maybe you should stay somewhere else tomorrow night, a hotel, just in case." "No. Nikki, no." I rolled over to face him. "We do this together, all of it. I'm not abandoning you to go through this alone. If something goes wrong, then we deal with it, but I'm not leaving." I touched his face, feeling the stubble on his jaw, trying to memorize the feeling. Whatever happens tomorrow night, we face it together. He pulled me close, holding me so tight it almost hurt. "I don't deserve you." "You're right," I said against his chest. "You deserve someone who knew what she was signing up for. Instead, you got me, stubborn and terrified and making this up as I go." "You're perfect," he whispered. I didn't feel perfect. I felt scared out of my mind. But as we fell asleep tangled together, I made a promise to myself. I would not let this curse win. I would not let it destroy us. Whatever it took, finding the Ashford descendant, communicating with the wolf, breaking the curse through sheer force of will, I would find a way. Because love might not be what the fairy tales promised, but it was what we had. And sometimes, that had to be enough. Chapter 3. The Second Moon. The day of the full moon felt like waiting for an execution. I tried to keep busy, cleaning the house, preparing food we probably wouldn't eat, checking and rechecking the locks on the basement room. Frederick worked from home, increasingly agitated as the sun traveled across the sky. "How do you feel?" I asked him around 3 in the afternoon. "Like my skin doesn't fit right, like something's crawling under my bones." He rubbed his arms unconsciously. "It's earlier than usual. The transformation is trying to start before sunset. What do we do?" "Get me downstairs, now." We moved quickly. Frederick practically running to the basement. His hands were already starting to change, fingers elongating, nails darkening. I fumbled with the keys, my hands shaking so badly it took 3 tries to unlock the reinforced room. "Go!" he gasped, stumbling inside. "Lock it! Don't come down here no matter what you hear." "Frederick! Go!" I slammed the door and threw the bolts, backing away as the first howl echoed from inside. It was barely 5 o'clock. Sunset was still 2 hours away. The transformation was accelerating. I stood outside that door for what felt like hours, listening to sounds that would haunt me forever. Bones breaking and reforming, screams that morphed into howls, the scrape of claws against concrete, against steel, testing the barriers between us. Then silence. I pressed my ear to the door, heart hammering. "Frederick?" A low growl answered me. Definitely not human. I should have gone upstairs like he'd asked. Should have put distance between myself and whatever was on the other side of that door. Instead, I sat down right there on the basement floor, my back against the wall, and stayed. If he was trapped down there alone, the least I could do was be nearby. Hours passed. The moon rose, invisible from the basement, but felt somehow, a pressure in the air, a pull in my blood that I couldn't explain. The sounds from the room changed, less rage, more pacing, like something caged and restless, testing its prison. Around midnight, my phone rang. Octavia. "How is he?" she asked without preamble. "Transformed. It happened early, before sunset." That's what I was afraid of. The curse is progressing faster than expected. I heard paper rustling. "I have news about the Ashford descendant. Her name is Isabel Ashford. She lives about 2 hours from you, runs a bookstore in a small town called Millbrook. I've made contact." My pulse quickened. "And?" "And she's willing to meet with you. But Nikki, she's not what I expected. She's young, only 26, and she doesn't practice magic. She knows her family history, but she's tried to distance herself from it. This won't be easy." "When can we meet her?" "I've arranged for this Sunday, 3 days from now. That gives Frederick time to recover from the transformation." Octavia paused. "Are you all right? You sound exhausted." "I'm sitting outside the basement room, listening to my husband be a monster." "Go upstairs, Nikki. Get some rest. You're no good to him if you run yourself ragged." "I can't leave him alone down here." "He's not alone. He's the wolf. And the wolf doesn't need you sitting vigil. You do, because it makes you feel less helpless." Her voice generated. "I understand, but helplessness is part of this. Some things you can't fix by proximity." She was right, but I still didn't move. After we hung up, I pulled out the velvet bag of protection herbs Octavia had given me. They smelled like sage and something sharper, almost spicy. I clutched the bag like a lifeline, listening to the creature behind the door. At some point, I must have dozed off, because I woke to silence and early morning light filtering through the basement windows. My neck ached from the angle I'd been sleeping at, my legs numb from sitting on the hard floor. I checked my phone. 6:47 a.m. The sun had risen. Slowly, carefully, I approached the door. "Frederick?" No answer. "Frederick, if you can hear me, if you're human again, say something." A groan. Definitely human. I unlocked the door with shaking hands and found him on the floor exactly where I'd found him the first time. Naked, covered in sweat, and what looked like bruises blooming across his ribs, his shoulders. "You stayed," he whispered when he saw me. Of course I stayed. I helped him upstairs, into the shower, then into bed. He fell asleep almost immediately, his body exhausted from the transformation. I lay beside him, studying his face in the morning light, looking for traces of the beast and finding none. He slept for 16 hours. When he finally woke, it was evening again. I'd spent the day alternating between watching him sleep and researching Millbrook, trying to find any information about Isabel Ashford online. She had a small web presence, just a simple website for her bookstore, Ashford and Kobe books, with a photo of a pretty young woman with auburn hair and a cautious smile. "How are you feeling?" I asked when Frederick's eyes opened. Like I was hit by a truck, and like the transformation lasted longer this time, did it? It started before sunset and didn't end until after sunrise, nearly 14 hours. He closed his eyes. "It's getting worse, faster than my father's journals documented." Octavia called. She found the Ashford descendant, Isabel. "We're meeting her Sunday." That got his attention. He sat up despite obvious pain. "She'll see us?" "She's agreed to meet, but Octavia warned me she's not involved in the supernatural world, Mo." "This might be difficult. Difficult I can handle. Impossible is what we're dealing with now." He touched my face. "You look exhausted." "I'm fine." "You're not. You're taking care of me and not taking care of yourself. That has to stop. You literally turn into a werewolf once a month. I think I can handle missing a little sleep." "Nikki, don't. Don't tell me I need to take care of myself when you're the one covered in bruises from your own transformation. Don't tell me to rest when you might be losing yourself more with each full moon. We're in this together, remember? That means I get to be tired and scared and stubborn about staying by your side." He pulled me close and I felt him trembling. Not from the aftermath of transformation, from emotion. "I'm terrified," he admitted. "Terrified that I'm going to lose control outside of the full moon. Terrified that I'm going to hurt you. Terrified that we'll meet this Isabel and she'll refuse to help and we'll be back to square one." "Then we find square two," I said firmly, "and square three. We keep trying until something works." The next 2 days passed in a blur of recovery and preparation. Frederick's bruises faded with supernatural speed. Apparently that was a werewolf perk. We researched everything we could about the Ashford family, about Morgana's death, about curse breaking in general. Octavia visited Friday evening, bringing more protection charms and a folder thick with documentation. "This is everything I've found about the original curse," she said, spreading papers across our kitchen table. "Morgana's death certificate, or what passed for one in 1847, witness accounts of the burning, records of Elias Kane's business dealings afterward, and most importantly, this." She pulled out a yellowed piece of paper, covered in handwriting that looked like it had been written in a hurry. "What is it?" I leaned closer. Morgana's own words. Her daughter preserved them. This is what she said as she burned. "For the betrayal of trust, for the murder of the innocent, for the cowardice that values gold over honor, let the Kane bloodline know the beast they claim to fear. Let them become the monster they made me out to be. Let them lose themselves to the thing they most despise generation upon generation, until one has the courage to face what their ancestor lacked, truth, penance, and sacrifice." Frederick's face had gone pale. "Sacrifice? What kind of sacrifice?" "That's the question, isn't it?" Octavia folded the paper carefully. "Most curses requiring sacrifice mean the sacrifice of something precious. Could be wealth, could be power, could be..." She trailed off, looking uncomfortable. "Could be what?" I pressed. "Could be life. Either the cursed individuals or someone close to them." The room went cold. "No," Frederick said immediately. "Absolutely not. I'm not sacrificing Nikki or anyone else to break this curse." "And I'm not suggesting it," Octavia said quickly. "I'm simply preparing you for what Isabel might demand. If she knows her family's history, if she carries any of Morgana's anger, she might require something significant in exchange for forgiveness." "Like what?" I asked. "The Kane fortune, Public acknowledgement of what Elias did, a blood debt. There are many forms sacrifice can take. She stood, gathering her papers. Just be prepared for her to ask for something you're not sure you can give. That's when things get complicated. After she left, Frederick and I sat in silence, the weight of what was coming pressing down on us. "If she asks for my life," he said quietly, "you let her have it." "Don't talk like that." "I'm serious, Nikki. If it's between breaking the curse by sacrificing me or letting it continue and possibly hurting you or someone else, stop!" I grabbed his hands. "We're not there yet. We don't even know what she'll ask for. Maybe she just wants an apology. Maybe she wants the truth told publicly. Let's not borrow tomorrow's nightmares when we have enough of our own." But that night, I lay awake long after Frederick fell asleep, thinking about sacrifice, about what I would give to save him, about what he'd give to protect me, about what Isabel Ashford might demand when we came to her, asking for forgiveness for a crime committed 200 years ago. Sunday morning arrived gray and cold, threatening rain. We drove to Millbrook in near silence, both of us nervous about what was coming. The town was small, quaint, the kind of place where everyone probably knew everyone else's business. Ashford & Co. Books sat on Main Street, a narrow storefront with a hand-painted sign and windows full of carefully arranged displays. We parked across the street, neither of us moving to get out. "What if she refuses?" Frederick asked. "Then we convince her. We beg if we have to. We do whatever it takes." "And if whatever it takes is too much?" I looked at him, at the man I'd married despite every rational reason to run. "Then we deal with that when we get there, together." He kissed me, soft and desperate and grateful, and then we crossed the street to meet the woman who held our future in her hands. The bell chimed as we entered. The store was cozy, packed with books from floor to ceiling, smelling of old paper and coffee. A woman looked up from behind the counter, the same auburn-haired woman from the website, but prettier in person, with sharp green eyes that assessed us immediately. "You must be the Canes," she said, not hostile, but not warm either. Careful. "Octavia told me to expect you. I'm Isabel." "Thank you for seeing us," Frederick said. "I haven't decided if I'm actually going to help you yet," she said bluntly, "but I agreed to listen. So talk. Tell me why I should forgive your family for murdering mine." Chapter 4. The Price of Forgiveness. Isabel locked the bookstore door and flipped the sign to closed, then gestured for us to follow her to a back room that served as part office, part reading nook. She settled into a worn armchair, leaving Frederick and me standing awkwardly by the door until she nodded toward a small couch. "Sit, this is going to take a while." We sat. I could feel Frederick's tension radiating off him in waves. "Octavia gave me the basic story," Isabel continued, her green eyes never leaving us. "Your ancestor Elias betrayed my ancestor Morgana, led the mob that burned her alive. She cursed your bloodline with lycanthropy. You're now the latest victim of that curse, and you want me to break it." She leaned forward. "Does that about sum it up?" "Yes," Frederick said. "I know I have no right to ask you for anything. You're damn right you don't, but here you are anyway." She stood, pacing to a bookshelf where a single framed photograph sat, a tintype of a woman with dark hair and fierce eyes. "That's Morgana, the only picture that survived. Her daughter carried it for 70 years before passing it down to my grandmother." I studied the photo. Morgana looked young, maybe early 30s, with an intensity that was visible even in the faded image. "I grew up hearing the stories," Isabel said, "how Morgana helped people, healed the sick, blessed crops, found lost children, how the town loved her until they didn't, until they needed someone to blame for a bad harvest, a illness, the general misfortunes of life. how Elias Kane, who'd used her services privately for years, turned on her to save his own reputation. "I'm sorry," Frederick said quietly. "What he did was unforgivable. And yet here you are, asking for forgiveness." Isabel turned to face us. "Do you know what happened to Morgana's daughter after her mother burned?" We shook our heads. She was 12 years old. She watched her mother die screaming, then she was driven out of town by the same people who'd bought her mother's herbs and charms for years. She walked for 3 days before another witch found her and took her in. She never practiced magic again, too afraid of what happened when people found out what you were. Isabel's voice had gone hard. "That fear passed down through my family like the curse passed through yours. My grandmother practiced in secret. My mother refused to acknowledge her abilities at all, and She gestured around the bookstore. "I sell books about magic instead of practicing it because I'm too scared of history repeating itself." "That's not fair," I said before I could stop myself. "What happened to Morgana was terrible, but Frederick isn't Elias. He's paying for a crime he didn't commit." "And my family has been paying too," Isabel shot back. "Paying in fear, in suppressed power, in the loss of our heritage. At least your curse has a potential end. Ours is just shame and silence." Frederick stood. "You're right. You're absolutely right. The curse destroyed my family, but it destroyed yours first. What Elias did was monstrous, and I can't undo it. But I can acknowledge it. I can try to make amends, whatever form that takes." "Whatever form?" Isabel's eyebrows rose. "Be careful making open-ended promises to a witch, even one who doesn't practice." "I mean it. Money, public acknowledgement, whatever you need. What I need is for my great-great-great-grandmother not to have been murdered by your great-great-great-grandfather. Since I can't have that, we have to settle for second best." She returned to her chair. "Tell me about the curse. Exactly what happens." Frederick described it, the monthly transformations, the loss of control, how it was worsening over time. He told her about his father's death, about the fear of losing himself completely to the wolf. Isabel listened without interrupting, her expression carefully neutral. When he finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "The curse was designed to be breakable," she finally said. "Morgana wasn't cruel, despite what was done to her. She believed in justice, not vengeance for its own sake, so she built in an out." "What kind of out?" I asked. 3 trials, 3 tests that the current cursed Kane must pass: physical sacrifice, emotional sacrifice, and spiritual sacrifice. Isabel pulled a leather journal from her desk drawer. "This was passed down through my family. Morgana's daughter wrote down everything her mother told her about the curse before she died, including the conditions for breaking it." She opened the journal, the pages yellow with age, covered in handwriting that shifted between languages. "The physical sacrifice is straightforward. The cursed one must face the beast within and survive, not just endure the transformation, but consciously confront the wolf consciousness and prove they're stronger than it." Frederick leaned forward. "How?" "During a transformation, you must maintain enough human consciousness to resist the wolf's most basic urge, to kill. If you can transform and keep someone alive that the beast wants to attack, preferably someone you love since that raises the stakes, you pass the first trial." My blood ran cold. "You're saying he has to transform while I'm in the room with him? While you're in the room, unprotected, and he has to choose not to kill you, despite every instinct screaming at him to attack." Isabel's expression softened slightly. "I told you this wouldn't be easy." "That's not a trial, that's a death sentence," I said. "It's a test of will. Can Frederick's humanity overcome the beast? That's the question. And if he fails? Frederick's voice was barely audible. Then Nikki dies. You remain cursed, and the cycle continues. Isabel didn't sugarcoat it. This is why the curse has never been broken. Most Cains either won't risk attempting it or fail when they try. What about the other two trials? I forced myself to ask. The emotional sacrifice requires acknowledging the full weight of what Elias did, not just intellectually understanding it, but truly feeling it, carrying it the way Morgana's descendants have carried it. You have to publicly confess his crime, take responsibility for it, and accept the social consequences. I can do that, Frederick said immediately. Can you? It means giving up your reputation, your business relationships, possibly your wealth if people decide the Cain fortune was built on blood. It means being known forever as the descendant of a murderer. It means shame. I already feel shame every time I transform. This is different. This is choosing shame, embracing it, letting it mark you publicly. Isabel's eyes were steady. Are you prepared for that? He hesitated, and I saw the internal battle. His business, his reputation, they mattered to him, but so did breaking the curse. Yes, he finally said. Whatever it takes. Then there's the third trial, the spiritual sacrifice. Isabel closed the journal. That one's more complicated. It requires the cursed Cain to willingly give up something they need for survival. Not want, need. Something without which they believe they can't go on. Like what? I asked. That's different for everyone. For some it might be wealth. For others, pride. For your husband. She studied Frederick carefully. I suspect it's control. You're terrified of losing control, of the wolf taking over permanently. The spiritual sacrifice would require you to stop fighting for control and instead surrender to what you are. Accept the beast as part of yourself rather than something to be conquered. That sounds like it contradicts the first trial, I pointed out. That's because they're paradoxes. You have to be strong enough to resist the wolf and wise enough to accept it. You have to maintain control while surrendering control. That's why the curse has never been broken. It requires impossible things. Frederick ran his hands through his hair. When do these trials have to happen? Consecutively, during the same lunar cycle, physical first, on the full moon, emotional second, in the days following, spiritual third, before the moon wanes completely. You have 1 month to complete all three, or you have to start over. And if I complete them, then the curse breaks, not just for you, for the entire bloodline. Any future Cain sons will be born free. The debt is paid, the scales balanced. It was everything we'd hoped for, and it was terrifying. When do we start? Frederick asked. That depends. The next full moon is in 3 weeks. Are you prepared to risk everything that fast? He looked at me. I saw the question in his eyes. Could you do this? Could you stay in a room with me while I transform and trust that I won't kill you? Every rational part of me screamed no. Every survival instinct said to refuse, to find another way, to not put myself in that kind of danger. But I'd married him. I'd stayed through the first transformation. I'd committed to fighting this curse together. 3 weeks, I said. We'll be ready. Isabel studied us both. I hope you mean that, because once you start the trials, there's no backing out. Failure means death, either Nikki's or Frederick's, depending on which trial fails. We understand, Frederick said. Do you? Because I don't think you grasp what you're agreeing to. She stood, crossing to a window that looked out on the quiet street. My family has watched Cains try to break this curse before. My grandmother told me about one attempt in the 1960s. The cursed Cain tried the physical trial with his wife present. He transformed and killed her in less than 5 minutes, tore her apart while she screamed his name. I felt sick. I don't tell you that to be cruel, Isabel continued. I tell you so you understand the stakes. This isn't romantic. It's not a test of love. It's a test of will, of strength, of whether the man can overcome the monster even when every cell in his body is screaming for blood. I can do it, Frederick said, but his voice shook. Maybe we'll find out. Isabel returned to her desk, pulling out a business card. This has my number. Over the next 3 weeks, I'll teach you everything I know about the trials, preparation techniques, meditation practices, anything that might improve your odds. You'll help us? I was surprised. I'm not heartless, despite what you might think. If you succeed, you break a curse that's caused suffering for 7 generations. That's worth something. She handed Frederick the card. But understand this. I'm helping because it's the right thing to do, not because I forgive your ancestor. Elias Cain murdered my ancestor, and that stain doesn't wash clean just because you're a decent person suffering for his crimes. I understand, Frederick said quietly. Good. Now get out of my store. I need to close up and you two need to start preparing. You have 3 weeks to get ready to face something that's killed everyone who's tried before you. We left the bookstore in a daze, neither of us speaking until we were back in the car. I can't let you do this, Frederick said finally. I can't ask you to risk your life. You're not asking, I'm offering. Nicky, listen to me. I turned to face him. I heard what Isabel said. I know the risks. But I also know that if we don't try, you'll lose yourself to the curse eventually. And that's not a risk, that's a certainty. At least this way we have a chance. What if I kill you? What if you don't? What if you're strong enough to hold the beast back? What if our love really is powerful enough to help you maintain control? That sounds like something from a fairy tale. Then maybe we need to believe in fairy tales, I said, because the alternative is accepting that you're going to become a monster permanently, and I can't accept that. I won't. He pulled me close, holding me so tight I could barely breathe. I don't deserve you. Stop saying that. You deserve a cure. You deserve a life. You deserve a chance. I pulled back to look at him. And I deserve a husband who doesn't spend every full moon locked in a basement. So we're doing this. Together. The drive home felt longer than the drive there. We'd left that morning with hope and returned with a plan. A dangerous, possibly deadly plan, but a plan nonetheless. 3 weeks to prepare. 3 weeks until I had to stand in a room with my husband while he transformed into a beast that wanted to kill me. 3 weeks until we discovered if love really could overcome a curse, or if we were just the latest victims in a cycle of tragedy that had been spinning for 200 years. That night, Frederick held me close and whispered, "If something goes wrong during the trial, if I can't control the wolf, I need you to promise me something." What? Run. Don't try to save me. Don't try to reach me. Just run and save yourself. I didn't promise, couldn't promise, because I'd already decided if it came down to it, I'd rather die trying to reach him than live, knowing I'd abandoned him when he needed me most. Maybe that made me a fool. Maybe that made me brave. Maybe it just made me someone who believed that love, real love, the messy, complicated, terrifying kind, was worth fighting for, even if the fight might kill us both. Chapter 5. The Trial. The 3 weeks passed in a blur of preparation that felt both too fast and agonizingly slow. Isabel came to visit twice, bringing books and journals that detailed other curse-breaking attempts. Most of them ended badly. She taught Frederick meditation techniques designed to strengthen his conscious mind during the transformation, to build a mental fortress the wolf couldn't completely breach. It won't be enough on its own, she warned. The beast is too strong, the curse too powerful. But it might buy you seconds, and seconds might be enough for your humanity to take hold. She taught me, too, how to project calm instead of fear, how to use breathing techniques to keep my heart rate steady even when terror screamed at me to run. The wolf can smell fear, she explained. It triggers predator instincts. If you panic, you become prey. You have to stay calm, centered, present. Think of yourself as an anchor, not a victim. Easier said than done. Octavia visited frequently as well, bringing protection charms that might slow the wolf if it attacked, buying me precious seconds to escape. She drew symbols on the walls of the basement room, not to contain Frederick, but to amplify his human consciousness during the transformation. I've never seen anyone attempt the trials, she admitted on one visit. Most people give up when they hear what's required. The fact that you're both willing to try. She shook her head. That says something about your bond. Or our desperation, I said. Sometimes those are the same thing. Frederick's nightmares got worse. He'd wake up gasping, convinced he was covered in blood, that he'd already killed me, and the nightmare was just memory. I'd hold him until the trembling stopped, whispering reassurances I wasn't sure either of us believed. We practiced the lockdown procedure obsessively, but now with a terrible twist. Instead of locking him in alone, we practiced me staying in the room with him. We'd stand there together in that reinforced space, and he'd look at me with such anguish. I can't do this to you, he'd say. You're not doing it to me. We're doing it together. 1 week before the full moon, I called my parents, told them I missed them, that I loved them, that they'd raised me to be strong, and I hoped I was making them proud. My mom heard something in my voice. Nikki, honey, is everything okay? You sound strange. I'm fine, just emotional. Married life is an adjustment. Are you sure? Because if something's wrong, if Frederick is... He's wonderful, I interrupted. I promise. I'm just calling to say I love you. After we hung up, I cried, because if the trial went wrong, that might be the last conversation I'd ever have with her. And she'd never know why her daughter died, never understand what I'd been fighting for. Frederick found me on the bathroom floor, tears streaming down my face. We don't have to do this, he said, kneeling beside me. We can call Isabel right now and tell her we're not ready. We can wait for another moon, more preparation. No more waiting, no more delays. I wiped my eyes. Every month that passes, the curse gets stronger. You said it yourself. You're feeling the wolf even between transformations now. We can't afford to wait. But if I hurt you, then you hurt me. Then I die knowing I tried to save you instead of running away. I can live with that. I grabbed his hands. What I can't live with is watching you disappear piece by piece, month by month, until there's nothing left of the man I married. That's a slower death, and it's worse. He pulled me into his arms, and we stayed like that for a long time, holding each other like we could somehow shield each other from what was coming. The night before the full moon, neither of us slept. We lay in bed talking about everything and nothing. Our first date, our wedding, the life we'd imagined before we knew about the curse. We talked about the future we still might have if the trial succeeded. I want to take you to Italy, Frederick said. Rent a villa in Tuscany for a month and do nothing but drink wine and watch sunsets. I want kids, I admitted. I know we haven't talked about it, but if we break this curse, if future Cain children are born free, I want that. I want a family with you. How many? 3, 2 girls and a boy. We'll name the first girl after your mother, the second after mine. And the boy? Something strong, something that means survivor. I turned to face him in the darkness, because that's what we're going to be after tomorrow, survivors. He kissed me, slow and deep and desperate, like he was trying to memorize the feel of me. We made love that night with a fierce intensity, born from the knowledge that it might be our last time. Every touch felt sacred, every whispered word a promise we might not be able to keep. Afterwards, as dawn crept through the windows, Frederick held me and said, "If I lose control, if the wolf is too strong, you won't. But if I do, I need you to know that this, us, was worth it. Even if it ends tomorrow, even if I only got a few months of being your husband, it was worth it. You made my life mean something beyond the curse." I couldn't speak around the lump in my throat, so I just held him tighter. The day of the full moon arrived. Isabel and Octavia both came to the house mid-morning. Isabel to perform the opening ritual that would officially begin the trial. Octavia to provide final preparations. And, though she didn't say it, to be a witness in case everything went wrong. "You understand the rules," Isabel said, as we stood in the basement. She'd drawn a circle on the floor in white chalk, symbols I didn't understand, marking the perimeter. "Once the transformation begins, Nikki stays inside the circle. Frederick, you'll be outside it. The circle won't stop you if you want to breach it, but it will make it harder. It will give Nikki a few seconds if you lose control." "And if he gets through?" I asked. "Then you use this." Octavia handed me a small knife, the blade etched with more symbols. "Silver. It won't kill him, but it will hurt him enough to maybe snap him back to consciousness, cut him somewhere non-vital, the arm, the shoulder. The pain might be enough to let his human side resurface." The thought of stabbing Frederick made me sick, but I took the knife. "The trial lasts until dawn," Isabel continued. "If Nikki survives until sunrise, the first trial is past. The wolf will have had all night to kill her and chosen not to. That proves Frederick's humanity is stronger than the beast." "Chosen not to, or been unable to?" I asked. "In magic, the distinction doesn't matter. Survival is survival." Frederick had been quiet all morning, his face pale, hands trembling slightly. Now he spoke. "How long until sunset?" Octavia checked her phone. 4 hours. You should eat something. Keep your strength up." "I can't eat." He looked at me. "Nikki, you should eat. You'll need energy to stay alert all night." I wasn't hungry either. But I forced down a sandwich while Isabel prepared the ritual components. She'd brought candles, herbs, and a bowl of something dark that I suspected was blood. "Animal," she assured me when she saw my expression. "The ritual requires a blood offering to acknowledge the curse's power, but I'm not that dramatic." At 3 o'clock, Frederick started showing the early signs. Restlessness, mood swings, his eyes flashing amber when the light hit them certain ways. "It's starting," he said, "earlier than ever before." "That's the curse, recognizing what you're attempting," Isabel said. "It's going to fight you hard tonight, harder than any transformation you've experienced." "Great. That's exactly what I wanted to hear." At 4 o'clock, we all moved to the basement. Isabel positioned me inside the chalk circle and began the ritual, speaking words in a language I didn't recognize. The air grew heavy, charged with something I could feel prickling across my skin. Octavia lit candles around the room's perimeter, their flames unnaturally still despite the movement of air. Frederick stood near the door, as far from me as the room allowed. His whole body was tense, trembling, fighting what was coming. "I love you," he said suddenly. "Whatever happens tonight, I need you to know that." "I love you too, and I'll see you on the other side of this." At 4:47 p.m., the sun set. The transformation hit Frederick like a physical blow. He doubled over, gasping, his hands already changing. But this time was different. This time he stayed conscious through the beginning, fighting to maintain some awareness as his body betrayed him. "Nikki," he managed through gritted teeth as his spine began to curve. If the wolf, I know. I'll run if I have to. I promise." It was a lie, we both knew it. The transformation seemed to take forever and no time at all. I watched my husband disappear into the beast, watched his body reshape itself with sickening cracks and tears, watched his eyes go from amber to pure yellow, from human to animal. The creature that stood before me was massive, fur dark as midnight, muscles coiled with predatory power. It breathed heavily, each exhale a low growl. Those yellow eyes fixed on me. I forced myself to breathe slowly, steadily, projecting calm I didn't feel. Inside the circle, I stood as still as possible, letting the wolf see me without triggering its chase instinct. For a long moment we just stared at each other. Then the wolf moved. It circled the chalk line, never taking its eyes off me, testing, measuring. I could see intelligence there, not human intelligence, but something ancient and cunning. "Frederick," I said softly, "I know you're in there. I know you can hear me." The wolf's ears twitched. Not much, but enough to tell me some part of him was listening. "Remember what Isabel taught you. Your humanity is stronger than the curse. You're not just the wolf, you're Frederick Kane. You're my husband. You're the man who brings me coffee every Sunday and cries during romantic movies and promised to take me to Italy." The wolf took a step closer to the circle's edge. "I'm not prey," I continued, keeping my voice steady. "I'm your wife. I'm the woman you love. The beast might want to hunt me, but you won't let it. You're stronger than it is." Another step closer. The wolf was barely 6 feet away now, close enough that I could see the saliva dripping from its fangs. Behind me, I heard Isabel's sharp intake of breath. She thought it was going to attack, so did I, but I held my ground. "I trust you," I whispered. "Even now, even like this, I trust you." The wolf's muscles bunched, preparing to lunge. Every instinct screamed at me to run, to grab the silver knife, to do something besides stand there waiting to be torn apart. Instead, I did the only thing I could think of. I stepped out of the circle. "Nikki, no!" Octavia's shout came too late. I walked toward the wolf, closing the distance between us until I was within arm's reach. Close enough to see my reflection in those yellow eyes. Close enough to die if Frederick couldn't hold the beast back. "You won't hurt me," I said firmly, "because you love me more than the wolf wants to kill me." The creature's lips pulled back, revealing rows of sharp teeth. A growl rumbled from deep in its chest, but it didn't attack. "That's right," I breathed. "You're fighting it. You're holding back." Slowly, carefully, I raised my hand. The wolf tracked the movement, every muscle tense. When my fingers were inches from its muzzle, it snapped at me, teeth closing on empty air, a warning. But it could have bitten me, could have taken my hand off. It chose not to. "Good," I whispered. "That's good, Frederick. You're doing it. You're in control." The wolf made a sound, part whine, part growl, confusion, frustration. Whatever it wasn't pure aggression. "I'm going to back up now," I said. "I'm going to give you space. But I'm staying in this room with you all night. And you're not going to hurt me." I retreated slowly to the circle, never breaking eye contact. The wolf watched but didn't follow. Hours passed. The wolf circled the room endlessly, pacing like a caged animal. Sometimes it would approach the circle, testing the boundary. Sometimes it would throw itself at the walls, howling its frustration. But it never attacked me. I talked to Frederick through it all. telling stories about our courtship, our wedding, plans for our future. Sometimes I thought I saw recognition flicker in those yellow eyes. Sometimes I was sure I imagined it. Around midnight, the wolf did something unexpected. It lay down. Not sleeping, it kept its eyes on me, vigilant, but the aggressive pacing stopped. It simply watched me from across the room, breathing heavily. "You're exhausted," I said. "Fighting the curse all night, keeping the beast from killing me. I know how hard this is." A low whine answered me. "Just a few more hours," I promised. "Dawn is coming. We're going to make it." But an hour later, something changed. The wolf stood abruptly, the fur along its spine standing on end. Its eyes had gone wild, unfocused. Whatever control Frederick had been maintaining was slipping. "No," I said firmly. "Frederick, stay with me. Don't let it win." The wolf stalked toward the circle, and this time there was nothing but hunger in its gaze. Whatever humanity had been holding it back was gone. I grabbed the silver knife with shaking hands. The wolf reached the circle's edge, and this time it didn't hesitate. It lunged. I dove to the side, the creature's claws missing me by inches. The chalk circle disrupted, its protection broken. There was nothing between me and the beast now except my own reflexes and a knife I didn't want to use. "Frederick!" I screamed as the wolf whirled toward me. "Please, it's me! It's Nikki!" It lunged again. I had no choice. As the wolf closed in, I slashed with the silver blade, catching it across the shoulder. The creature howled, a sound of pain and rage that echoed off the concrete walls. It stumbled back, blood streaming from the wound. The silver was burning it, smoking where it touched fur and flesh. "I'm sorry," I sobbed. "I'm so sorry, but I need you to remember who you are." The wolf looked at me, at the knife in my shaking hand, at its own bleeding shoulder. Something shifted in its eyes, confusion replacing rage. "That's right," I said desperately. "The pain is breaking through the curse's hold. You can feel yourself again. You can remember." The wolf shook its massive head, like it was trying to clear away fog. It took a step toward me, and I raised the knife again, though my whole body was trembling. "Don't make me hurt you again, please, Frederick. Come back to me." The creature stopped, stood there breathing heavily, blood dripping onto the concrete floor. We stared at each other across 6 feet of basement room, woman and wolf, love and terror, humanity and beast. Then, slowly the wolf's legs folded beneath it. It sank to the floor, head bowed, and went completely still. Not dead. I could see its sides heaving with breath. But submitting? I didn't move, didn't dare hope this was anything but a trick. An hour passed, then another. The wolf never moved from its prone position, never lifted its head, just lay there, breathing, bleeding slowly from the silver wound I'd given it. As the first gray light of dawn began filtering through the basement windows, I felt the change in the air. The pressure lifted, the magical weight that had been pressing down on us all night suddenly released. The wolf's form began to shimmer. I watched as the transformation reversed itself. Fur receding, body shrinking, bones cracking back into human configuration. Watched until Frederick lay on the concrete floor exactly where the wolf had been, naked and covered in blood from the shoulder wound. "Frederick?" I dropped the knife and ran to him. His eyes opened, brown, completely human, filled with tears. "You're alive. Oh God, you're alive." "You did it." I was crying too. "You held back. You passed the first trial." "I wanted to kill you." His voice broke. For hours, all I could think about was tearing you apart. The wolf was so strong, Nikki, stronger than I've ever felt it. But you didn't. Even when you lost control at the end, even when I had to cut you, you stopped. You submitted instead of attacking again. I held his face in my hands. You chose me over the beast. Isabel appeared beside us, Octavia close behind. The witch's face was pale but triumphant. "The first trial is complete," she said formally. "The physical sacrifice has been made. Frederick Kane has proven his humanity stronger than the curse." Octavia wrapped a blanket around Frederick's shoulders. "That was the bravest thing I've ever witnessed. Both of you." "Or the stupidest," Frederick said weakly, but he was smiling through his tears. "Sometimes they're the same thing," I replied, echoing Octavia's words from weeks ago. We helped Frederick upstairs into bed. The silver wound on his shoulder would heal slowly. Silver always did with werewolves, but it wasn't life-threatening. "Sleep," I told him. "You've earned it." "The second trial can wait. You just survived the impossible. Rest now." He fell asleep almost immediately, his hand clutching mine like an anchor. I sat beside him, watching him breathe, unable to believe we'd actually survived. One trial down, 2 to go. Isabel found me an hour later, still sitting vigil. "The emotional sacrifice is next," she said quietly. "Public confession of Elias's crime. Are you both prepared for what that means?" "We will be," I said. "Whatever it takes." She nodded. "Then we'll prepare the second trial, but Nikki..." She hesitated. "What you did last night, stepping out of the circle, moving toward the wolf instead of away, that was either brilliantly intuitive or suicidally reckless. Which do you think it was?" "Both." She smiled slightly. "You understood something important. The curse feeds on fear and distance. By showing trust instead of terror, by moving toward Frederick instead of running from the beast, you gave his humanity something to hold on to. That's probably what made the difference. I just did what felt right. Instinct like that is rare. Treasure it." She turned to leave, then paused. "One trial down, Nikki. You're 1/3 of the way to breaking a curse that stood for 200 years. Don't underestimate what you've accomplished." After she left, I finally let myself feel the full weight of what we'd done. My hands started shaking, my breath coming in gasps as the terror I'd been suppressing all night finally broke through. I'd stood in a room with a monster that wanted to kill me. I'd trusted my husband to be stronger than his curse, and somehow, impossibly, we'd survived. But 2 trials remained, 2 more chances for everything to go wrong. 2 more tests that had to be passed, or all of this, the fear, the pain, the risk, would be for nothing. I looked at Frederick sleeping beside me, at the silver wound on his shoulder that I'd given him, and I made a silent promise. We would finish this. We would pass the remaining trials. We would break this curse, because we'd come too far, sacrificed too much, survived too much, to fail now. And because love, real, messy, terrifying love, was worth fighting for, even if the fight wasn't over yet. Epilogue. Full moon rising. 3 months later, I stood on our back porch watching the full moon rise over the trees, and I felt nothing but peace. The second trial had been brutal in a different way than the first. Friedrich had arranged a press conference, invited journalists, his business associates, anyone who mattered in his professional and social circles, and he told them the truth. Not about the werewolf curse, that would have been too much, but about Elias Kane. About how the Kane fortune was built on the betrayal and murder of an innocent woman, how his ancestor had led a mob to burn a witch who'd only tried to help people. He'd offered to donate the majority of his wealth to organizations fighting injustice, to use the Cain name to acknowledge historical wrongs rather than hide them. The fallout had been immediate and vicious. Business partners severed ties, friends disappeared. The media had a field day with the guilty heir angle. Frederick's reputation, everything he'd built, crumbled within days. But he'd never wavered. He'd carried the shame publicly, just as Isabel had required. He'd accepted the emotional sacrifice without complaint. The second trial was past. The third had been the strangest. The spiritual sacrifice, surrendering control. After surviving by maintaining control during the physical trial, Frederick had to do the opposite, fully accept the wolf as part of himself. Isabel had guided him through a meditation that lasted the entire week before the next full moon. He'd had to mentally commune with the beast, to stop fighting it, and instead embrace it as an integral part of who he was. "The wolf isn't your enemy," Isabel had explained. "It's a part of you the curse twisted into something dark. Accept it, integrate it, and it loses its power to control you." I'd watched as Frederick struggled with the paradox. How do you control something by surrendering to it? How do you maintain your humanity by accepting your beast nature? But slowly, something had shifted. He'd stopped talking about the wolf as separate from himself. Started saying, "when I transform," instead of "when it takes over." The next full moon, he'd transformed, but differently. The change had been smoother, less violent. And when the wolf opened its eyes, I'd seen Frederick looking back at me. Not fully human consciousness, but not mindless beast either, some integration of both. The wolf had walked up to me calmly, had let me touch its fur, had even pressed its massive head against my chest in what could only be described as an embrace. At dawn, when he'd transformed back, Isabel had declared the third trial complete. The curse was broken, not just for Frederick, but for every future generation of Cains. The debt was paid, the scales balanced. After 200 years, Morgana Ashford's curse had finally been lifted. Now, 3 months later, life was slowly returning to something approaching normal, a new normal. Certainly, our old life couldn't be reclaimed after everything that had happened, but normal nonetheless. Frederick had started a consulting business, helping other companies address their ethical foundations. Ironically, his willingness to publicly acknowledge his family's sins had made him an expert in corporate responsibility and making amends. We had less money, a smaller house, but more peace than I'd ever imagined possible. The full moons were different now. Frederick still transformed. That part of the curse couldn't be fully removed, but he maintained consciousness throughout. The wolf was gentle, controlled, more like a very large protective dog than a killing machine. We'd even gone for walks on our property during his transformations, the massive wolf padding beside me through moonlit woods, while I laughed at how surreal my life had become. Isabel had become a friend. She'd started practicing magic again after helping us break the curse, said watching us fight for each other had reminded her what power was meant to be used for. She'd even started teaching me some basic witchcraft, protection spells, herbal magic, things that might come in handy in the supernatural world we now inhabited. Octavia visited often, pleased to have been part of breaking a curse that had stumped magical practitioners for generations. She'd written about it in her private journals, documented the process for future reference. Tonight was special, though, the first anniversary of the night we'd broken the curse. The first full moon after 1 full year of freedom. I heard Frederick coming up behind me, felt his arms wrap around my waist as he joined me on the porch. "Penny for your thoughts?" he murmured against my neck. "Just thinking about how much has changed, how different this is from a year ago." Better different or worse different? Better. Definitely better. I leaned back against him. "How are you feeling? Any signs of transformation starting?" "Not yet, still a few hours," he paused. "Are you sure you want to do this?" I turned in his arms to face him. Positive. It's time. We'd been discussing it for weeks. Now that the curse was broken, now that Frederick's transformations were safe and controlled, we'd decided to try for the family we'd talked about that night before the first trial. 3 kids, I said, smiling at the memory. 2 girls and a boy. Something that means survivor, Frederick added. Because that's what we are, what our children will be. Survivors of a curse that tried to destroy our family and failed. He kissed me, soft and sweet and full of promise. "I love you, more than I have words for." "I know, and I love you, all of you, the man and the wolf and everything in between." As the moon climbed higher, we went inside. The basement room sat empty now, no longer needed for containment. We talked about converting it into something else, a home gym, a playroom for future children, anything but a prison. Later, much later, after Frederick had transformed and we'd spent hours in the woods together under the moon's light, after he'd changed back and we'd made love with an urgency born from gratitude for second chances, I lay in his arms thinking about fairy tales. They always end with happily ever after, as if the hard part is over once the curse is broken or the dragon is slain. But real life isn't like that. Breaking the curse wasn't the end of our story, it was just the beginning. We still had work to do, amends to continue making, a life to rebuild from the ashes of everything that had been destroyed. But we were doing it together, and that made all the difference. "What are you thinking about?" Frederick asked sleepily. "Happy endings, how they're not really endings at all." No, they're just new beginnings. Harder ones sometimes, messier ones, but beginnings nonetheless. He pulled me closer. "Then here's to our messy beginning, Mrs. Kane." "To our beginning," I agreed, "and to all the full moons ahead." Outside, the moon shone bright and full, no longer a source of fear, but a reminder of what we'd overcome, of how love really could break curses, how trust could transform monsters, how 2 people willing to fight for each other could achieve the impossible. I'd married a monster, but I'd found a man, and together we'd discovered that sometimes the scariest part of love isn't the danger, it's the courage it takes to stay, to fight, to believe that happy endings are possible even when everything seems hopeless, especially then. The moon would rise again next month, and the month after that, and every month for the rest of our lives. But we'd face each one together, man and wife, human and wolf, 2 souls bound, not by curse but by choice. And that, I thought, as I drifted off to sleep in my husband's arms. That was the greatest magic of all, the end.